I'm recording these in separate chunks, and I feel like I am starting to get a little bit of a cold, so if my voice sounds a bit different, that's why. The good news is, if I sneeze, then I can make my little Animal Crossing character sneeze too, so that would make a funny visual thing. But anyway. Here we go, the 50k subscriber special, Mashed Bandicoot DLC, the not exactly long-awaited, not exactly sequel to Mashed Bandicoot. So yeah, like I've said many times, I never planned to make alternate endings to Mashed. The fake out at the end of part 2 was a very last minute thing. It was just intended to end the way it ended, and then that was it. I stand by my position that a sequel to Mashed Bandicoot just wouldn't really work. I think I'd just constantly be concerned that it wasn't as good as the first one, and I don't really know where I would even take the story. But the idea of doing alternate endings, because it's like this little extra thing that's just kind of tacked on to the original Mashed Bandicoot, it means that it can't really be compared to Mashed Bandicoot, you know? So, I didn't really have to worry as much about making it as good or better, because, it's technically still the first Mashed Bandicoot. But it's also a separate thing that doesn't affect the original if you don't want it to. So, different to like making a sequel or a remake, this is going back into the world of Mashed Bandicoot and just sort of changing the narrative and taking it somewhere else, but still keeping the original ending intact. It just works out really well, really. Because of the complicated way I did this, what we're going to do is we're going to first watch the main introduction video. Then we're going to watch the normal Robotnik ending with the embryo says and the song at the end. Then I'll go back and watch the version that has the secret credits instead of that. Then we'll watch the Cortex ending along with that ending's secret credits, because nothing is replaced with those. They just play after the full ending finishes. And then finally we'll watch the Mario Head ending, which is the same every single time.
Coming at you live from the internets. This is the fifth.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to say on this introduction section. I thought it was necessary to have like a sort of like an introduction video, because obviously like I hyped this up a lot, and there was the whole big premiere thing. That was a lot of fun. But people like coming back now, not knowing that this had happened, they would need some kind of like video to tell them what exactly Mashed Bandicoot DLC was,
I'm being told our feathered friends.
Also, this little mug here says "I love CB."
It seems it's up to
Patchy the pilot!
I can't hear you!
Aye, Captain.
It worked out perfectly to have Patchy be the one to sort of introduce this idea because of the whole, like, Shanghai thing, which is very difficult to find footage of. It's very low quality footage that I had to end up using.
Come on back to the galley. I'm cooking up a real live caveman. I found frozen in a block of ice.
You bet.
Now, this ain't like most shit.
It's just a fun little introduction video. It's sort of like a very meta thing. Like, it doesn't take place within the Mashed Bandicoot universe. It's sort of like outside of it, with like the characters sort of being aware that they're part of this story.
From now on, you can select who you want Crash to shoot, free of charge.
Free? That's totally in my budget.
If you want me to continue my plan...
And I like that Cortex tells you to pick Robotnik, Robotnik tells you to pick Cortex, and then Mario Head just wants you to pick him.
What? What did I do?
Yeah, and this is from my Insane Trilogy Let's Play. I don't know. I could never really decide on whether... like Mashed Bandicoot was a movie or a TV show or a video game, and so it's that you're reloading the save file from that point in the story where you left off and then deciding to do something different.
Together you and I will take over the world!
I had to recreate most of the dialogue in this because I needed to get it like isolated, and I didn't have the original project files because I made Mashed Bandicoot years ago, and I've barely got any of like the remnants of that.
Back! To be on the safe side, I'm gonna have to kill it.
Some of the dialogue I actually made a bit better.
Minions to construct a mighty robot, the Doominator.
Apart from the things that I included in that like Mashed Bandicoot animation collection thing, everything else had to be recreated for Mashed Bandicoot, the whole like Doominator set. I mean, it's just like screenshots from Crash of the Titans cutscenes, but still.
Don't you remember all the good times?
Yeah, and as you can tell, most of the story elements are all in part 2. Barely any of the stuff in part 1 was included in this.
Crash, fuck him up so we can go home.
It was alright in the premiere because we watched the first 2 parts of Mashed Bandicoot first and then watched the alternate endings. But for this I needed to remind people what the big things that happened in Mashed Bandicoot were so that you'd remember.
An ordinary dollar.
No, and we need friends.
I finally got me $1 million. Shut up!
This
I know some people know the video very, very well, and they wouldn't need that, but other people, you know, needed to be refamiliarized with the story events.
Who will get shot? Will it be Sassy Cortex, Portly Robotnik, or good old Patito?
I really like the sentence mixing for Patchy and saying all three of their names. That all sounds really good.
This is gonna be fun. I'm voting for Cortex.
That little audio clip was from a video by Anime Bro Me. I found that in my journey to search for things related to Cortex and Robotnik to see if there was anything that I could potentially use. Alright, now we'll actually get into the actual thing. Here we go with the Shoot Robotnik ending. A lot of people thought that was the EastEnders intro. No, it's not. It's actually from Doctor Who.
I used to rule the world, but that was when I ruled the world.
Yeah, it's funny. CS188 did that exact same joke. He did Viva La Vida, but interest was quickly lost. It's a joke that I've sort of had in my head for years and years. You know, me and my sister used to make that joke about the song, that it could just go like that. So I'm glad that I finally got to actually do that in a video.
Why did you do it? Oh my god, I'm about to piss myself!
Now, why in the world was that necessary?
So like I said, I didn't have most of the assets from the original Mashed Bandicoot. I think I did have the Cortex heads, but I recreated them anyway to make them look a bit better, a bit higher quality, and also just to get more so that it would look smoother. That was the first thing I animated with this new Cortex head, him saying, "Now why in the world was that necessary?" And I was so proud of that once I watched that back. I was like, wow, that was so much smoother than how he's animated in the original Mashed Bandicoot. Yeah, like this ticker tape at the bottom. So yeah, I'm watching the first version, because I did loads of different versions, as you know. And in one version, in this shot, there's engine flossing. And that is purely because I got a comment from somebody saying, can you make engine do the floss? And I just thought that was really funny. So I replied and I said, I'll do that, but I'll sort of hide it so that people don't notice it straight away. And so, yeah, that was funny to just put that in there.
A little help here?
You've got nothing left, Cortex.
Oh yeah, and the same with Aku Aku. I think for most of the original Mashed Bandicoot, I used the Aku Aku from the Crash 3 Time Twister cutscenes. This is from a cutscene in Twinsanity, and he stays mostly still, so I was able to get a lot of mouth movements and also make his eyebrows go up and down when necessary. This was actually made in Windows Movie Maker, by the way. Yeah, and there's the True Arceus. I have referenced the True Arceus quite a lot, actually.
No.
There's so many layers of laughter there. There's like pretty much all of these characters, Uka Uka, Aku Aku, Guanum, Mario, Scratch, Grounder, and Engine are also laughing in there somewhere. And there's also some stuff from Only Plays in there as well.
With my totally cool dance moves.
Well, we're off.
Getting those dwarfs to stay in more or less the same place on the carpet, that took a while. I like that Guanum just kind of up and leaves in this ending. Like I didn't have any part for him to play in this one, so it made more sense to just get rid of him, you know.
Get ready, Crash.
Okay, so this idea, I want to say that this idea came from Markiplier's, funnily enough, because Markiplier's up there in the corner. It came from Markiplier's Heist with Markiplier series thing. One of the endings was like this sort of Dance Dance Revolution battle thing. And yeah, so I just kind of copied that idea. I mean, it's not like that's an original idea, you know. But that just seemed the most fitting, I suppose, for Crash and Cortex to have this battle. And then I've got this this remix of Activate the Dance Bot playing, which I'm really proud of. I'm really happy with the remix. This was difficult. This took a long time to put together because I had to put each of these individual arrows and sync them all up to the song. It's the kind of thing where you think of the idea and you're like, yeah, that'll be easy, and then you start putting it together in the editor and you're like, oh my god, this is taking so much longer than I thought it would. This is requiring so much more thought than I thought it would.
Oh no! Well done.
Oh yeah, that was actually a very last minute addition, the done. That's why it's not in the other version. I tried to change like at least 3 different things across the different versions. There's like one thing that's added, one thing that's taken away, and then one thing that's just sort of changed.
But I finally beat you, Crash.
It was really fun to just sort of go back to Mashed Bandicoot and just sort of look at little things and thinking, oh, I could, bring that back. And so it made sense that Cortex would win the dance battle, Crash would die. But because he got that extra life earlier, then he still has a life, so he comes back to life.
And now you have to do it again. What?
Yeah, I like that. I mean, you could just take that as a reference to the Black Eyed Peas song, I Got a Feeling, but it's also sort of a double reference to the remix that I made. What was it called? Do It Again. And it just fits so perfectly with that weird Crash from the Crash 2 commercial.
You have lives?
Yes.
Here's a fun fact. I'm not sure how many people knew this. Him saying yes and then laughing. Do you want to know what that's from? It's from a commercial for Wrath of Cortex. There is this really weird bit in one of the commercials where Crash supposedly talks, and he just says, "Hey, stop playing with my sister."
Hey, stop playing with my sister.
So I sort of sentence mixed that a bit. That's one of the things that I really like about this ending specifically is referring to a lot of like different Crash media, not just the games, but sort of like YouTube videos. Like there was the dance that Fandom Trash made. There's a fan animation by Gaius the Raptor, I believe. You know, there's a lot of different sort of fan animations as well that I kind of stole and didn't credit, but that's just between us.
Out of ammo.
Oh yeah, I thought it was important to include that line there so that people wouldn't be thinking, why doesn't Crash just shoot all three of them or two of them or anything? And so I included that line as a way to say there was literally only one shot left in the gun, so he couldn't have done that.
Unless... Kiddo, know when you're defeated.
I actually made this bit a little bit longer. It was originally just going to be, I can't possibly take you both on at once, and then it would just go straight to, okay, I give up. But I extended it a little bit, added this little bit, because it did seem like this ending was a bit short, but I didn't really have anything else that I wanted to do story-wise, so I just, I had them just talk a bit longer.
Accept your defecation.
This animation was, funnily enough, made by Mashed. Which means it'll actually come up if you search Mashed Bandicoot. So that's a funny coincidence. And Aku's voice clip here is from Xavier Renegade Angel, which just seemed to fit Aku somehow. I don't know how, but it just fits him perfectly. I suppose it's also kind of a reference to the Ripto defecated joke, but not really. Like, that's a coincidence.
Okay, I give up.
For real?
Well, of course not. I'm out of here.
Oh yeah, and I'll talk about this a bit more as we go along, but one of the main things that I was striving for when making these endings is that I wanted to make all three of them really distinct from one another. It would have been really easy to like make the Cortex ending and the Robotnik ending pretty much the same thing, but just with the main villain swapped out for the other one. So I really wanted to make sure that all three of them were very, very different. And because it got kind of very confusing which ending was which, because I have the Robotnik ending, which is the one that Robotnik isn't in, and then the Cortex ending is the one that Cortex isn't in, but the Mario Head ending is obviously just the Mario Head ending, like, you know which one that is. So it got confusing which one I was referring to in the like file names and stuff. So I called them the unsatisfying ending, the blockbuster ending, and the black hole ending. So that's how I could tell them apart. So this is the unsatisfying ending. So aside from a few little bits here and there, this is mostly like focused on just Crash and Cortex. Whereas the next ending, the blockbuster ending, is about like a lot of characters, like it's this big battle thing that's like that encompasses a lot of the characters that are in this scene. It worked actually really well because of the exact point that these alternate endings branch off from. All three of the villains are like on completely different pages. Like they're not all working together at this point, Robotnik has betrayed Cortex, Cortex has betrayed Robotnik back, and then Mario Head is just kind of sort of following either one of them, but then sort of like stops following Cortex after he kills Mr. Krabs, and so that, none of them are on the same page. So it made sense that Cortex would like not really have any other option than to fight Crash one-on-one because nobody was on his side anymore. Whereas with Robotnik, he still had the respect from his other lackeys and stuff like that, and so it could encompass more characters. And then, obviously, there's the Mario Head ending, which just, nobody saw that coming.
Goodbye, Crash Bandicoot.
I had to recreate that exact same teleport effect from the same one that I made Robotnik do. It was kind of confusing, and then I also had to find the exact same teleportation sound effect. But that was actually, ended up being really easy to find. It was just on YouTube. Oh yeah, I posted this on Twitter. This was one of the hardest masks to do because Cortex is probably the most difficult character to mask that I've ever experienced.
You're a strange-looking sea monster.
Oh yeah, and somebody asked me if I animated this myself. No, I stole it, obviously. Do you think I could animate that? It's from, it was an animation I watched. It's called Cortex's Airship. I forget who it's from, so I'll put their name up on screen here.
There must be a way for us to get off this island.
I really like that water.
Our salvation
It looks really nice, really beautiful.
I'm afraid that ship's not gonna help us.
Why not?
It's just really small.
Yeah, and like I said in Everything Wrong with Mashed Bandicoot DLC, that's literally just a joke I stole from the Mighty Boosh. It's a funny joke, so I don't feel bad.
This is just great.
Doing this the Embryo Says bit, and then having the credits from Adventures of the Sonic Hedgehog. I liked doing that because then it was sort of like a reference to the show, as well as like Robotnik poops, where people would often do that. So that was kind of what I was trying to do here. It made sense to have it be Embryo Says, because that was a thing in Mashed Bandicoot Part 2.
Embryo says trans rights are human rights.
Yeah, so having Embryo say trans rights are human rights, that was purely just because that was like a thing. It was like such and such says trans rights. And then I thought about it and thought about how I would sentence mix that. And I was like, oh yeah, that would actually work really well because there's this cutscene where he says, you were wrong and I was right. And so I just thought, yeah, actually that would be really easy to sentence mix him to say that. I got a lot of comments from people after posting this and saying that they were really thankful that I put that in there. That was nice. Kind of weird that you'd turn to YouTube Poop of all places for any kind of like positive trans representation, but I'm glad I made you happy.
Why won't the world understand?
You and me, always.
I liked doing this because this is sort of like their song, I suppose, in a way, isn't it? And it was very easy to get clips of each of them saying you and me always. I was debating auto-tuning it, but actually I think it works better if it's their natural voices.
Ta-ta!
Yeah, and I wonder how many people actually stuck around to the end of this video to hear this.
Fuck this ending.
So now I'll go back to the other version with the secret credits and go and skip ahead to that.
This is just great.
So let's talk about this. This idea I had originally planned for the original Mashed Bandicoot. I really liked the idea of, because SpongeBob was left in charge of the Krusty Krab, and then if Mr. Krabs never came back, then this is what would happen. There would just be total chaos in the streets, and then SpongeBob would just be ignoring it all in the Krusty Krab, rubbing two pickles together. And I really like that. It's just a really funny visual that he's just oblivious to all the chaos going on behind him.
That's more like it.
Oh yeah, so I love this. This felt very cathartic to finally do this, because so many people constantly said to me, like, what happened to Dingodile and the weird King Ripper Bowseroo thing? Did they actually get their pizza? And, you know, because that was just a thing that I never carried on with. It was a thing in Mashed Bandicoot Part 1, then I never followed it up in Part 2. And, you know, I did a little bit here and there. I sort of teased to Misadventures of Dingodile things in different videos. And then I eventually did a little sketch thing in Spyro Roasts. But it was very cathartic to then have them actually finally have a conclusion to their story and have them be at the Krusty Krab and eating the Krusty Krab pizza.
Dinner.
I flippin' love this video, man. I know it's my video and I know I sound very narcissistic praising myself all the time, but it was really fun doing this. It really was. Oh yeah, that's from a Vanos Gaming video actually. They were playing Prop Hunt on a Crash Bandicoot map. I mean, it was obvious that they didn't really know much about Crash Bandicoot, but like everyone knows the Ugga Bugga. Everyone knows that sound that Aku Aku makes, so they were just doing that over and over again. So I just reference back to that right at the very end there. But yeah, so that was the Robotnik ending, or the unsatisfying ending as I called it. Very happy with that. Very happy with how that turned out. It was difficult to find an exact place to put it because I was going to put it in the main Robotnik ending. But I felt like, especially because I was trying to keep that mostly as just like a Crash and Cortex centered ending, that it didn't feel right to keep adding on these extra things where you think like this is where it's going to end and then it has something else because it's already got the Embryo Says thing and then it's got the song at the end. And it just felt like it was just never going to end, and I really wanted it to be a bit more self-contained. But then I came up with the idea of doing these variations on the different endings and then having secret credits hidden. And then I was also trying to think of some secret credits that I could do for the Mario Head ending. But then I thought, actually, it works better if the Mario Head ending is just the same every single time. If I were to add credits, then it would kind of ruin the anticlimacticness of it. You know, the whole point is that it's supposed to be Markiplier just saying that was anticlimactic, and then that's where the video ends. That's it. So it would take away from that. So yeah, it's not even across the 3 endings. The way I do it is different every time. But that, that's kind of the fun of it. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about an idea that I had that I never followed through with because I thought that it wasn't worth doing. So I was originally going to do another secret thing. It was going to be if you chose Robotnik twice in the same go round. So if you chose him first and then you chose him third. Then on the third one, it was going to lead to this secret alternate ending. It was going to play out as normal, but then before the dance battle started, Cortex was going to interrupt it. And he was basically going to come to the realization that they'd already done it. And so he started piecing things together.
Wait a minute! Haven't we done this already?
What?
Remember, we fight, and I win! Then Perky here ruins it for me. It was you! You're doing this! You're the one that hit the gun out of my hands! You're the one who tried to eat Tails!
It was you all along!
What are we even doing back here? This corp has been over for flipping years! And I have had enough of you!
It was going to be revealed that Mario Head was actually the one who was creating these alternate endings. He was using his, omnipotent powers to create these different timelines and these different versions of events and keep redoing them over and over and trying to get different results and stuff like that. And it was going to be that the reason he was doing that in the first place was because he was trying to find a way to bring Mr. Krabs back. But then ultimately it would never work because all of these alternate endings took place after Mr. Krabs had already died. So it was just going to be this thing where he was doing all this to try and figure out a way to bring his friend back to life. Yeah, it's very stupid. It's very corny. I know it is. So yeah, I eventually just decided to just not do that because it seemed like a bit too much, and also I didn't want all this extra bonus stuff to be hidden behind you doing these weird orders, and I didn't want these big extra bonus things to be so hidden from casual viewers, because most people would just watch the 3 endings and then think that's it. But if you go searching for the variations and finding the codes and stuff, then you just get a bit of a bonus thing. That's why I did the little bonus video where it's it's a nice reward, but it's not if you didn't get that, then you were missing a big chunk of the story, I suppose, because that didn't seem fair. So yeah, I eventually just scrapped that whole idea. And I think it works better for it just to sort of be what it is. They're just alternate endings. There's no real reason that they exist within the universe itself, other than maybe the whole, it's a video game reloading the save file thing that I was talking about before. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't end up doing that, because I realize now that it would have just been a lot of exposition, not a lot of funny, I wouldn't really know how to piece that together. Would it just be the same shot of Cortex just relaying all this information? It really wouldn't work. And on top of that, I had absolutely no idea where I would even go from there once this was all revealed. What would happen after Cortex found this out? I didn't know. I didn't know where I would take that, so I gave up on the entire idea. Which, I'm glad I did. It was an interesting idea, I suppose, but I'm glad I didn't actually do it. But at least I got to share it now, so that you guys are aware that that was a potential thing that could have happened. I suppose you can think of it as in an alternate timeline, that did happen. The mystery deepens. The Meepin dysentery. What am I talking about? But anyway. So now we'll move on to the Cortex ending, and we'll just watch this full thing.
Oh, what the...
Oh yeah, and I like that both Robotnik and Cortex get thrown out of the window. If you watch them in a specific order, you'd kind of expect that same thing would happen to Mario Head, and then it doesn't. I really like that animation of Robotnik spitting out the apple, because I had to cut his head out separately so that I could put it on this body that I already had of him tied up.
Yes, with that big-headed moron out of the way.
There's a very subtle Dr. Robotnik's theme from the Sonic movie merged in with the background music here. So if you were wondering why that was in the credits, that's where it is. It's sort of subtly merged into the SpongeBob movie game music that you hear in this scene.
I'll have to give myself a promotion.
Those little things that flash up, what are they? There's the bit from the Snapcube Eggman thing. There's a bit from A Hat in Time, and there's a bit from My Loco Roco Trilogy review. Those are all referencing things where characters excessively rolled their R's, and that was the point because that's what Robotnik is doing right here. Did I have to explain that? I don't know.
Scratch, rounder, engine, get that bandicoot.
What happened to Dr. Cortex?
Fried chicken! We're with Dr. Robotnik now!
All of the sentence mixing in this bit where the characters are saying each other's names, that's one thing that I always find very cringy when people do like these like fan crossover things, is to just have the characters say each other's names excessively because it's like, haha, look, it's this character from this thing talking to this character from this other thing. So, I didn't really like doing that much. I usually just had them not really refer to them by name or by like nicknames or something like that. Except for right here. I got Robotnik to say Engine, I got Scratch to say Dr. Cortex, and then I got Engine to say Dr. Robotnik. And it all sounds pretty natural. And considering I paused on this frame, I'll talk about Engine here. Most of the engine animations, apart from the one that's about to come up in a sec, are from the Mind of a Mutant cutscene, but because those cutscenes are in black and white, I decided to add a bit of colour to him.
And a splash of color.
So I gave his hair a bit of a blue tint, I gave the missile checkered pattern a bit of a red tint, and then I gave the wrist part of his gloves a little yellow tint.
It's going to be such fun!
So yeah, this was basically exactly the same shot from Mashed Bandicoot Part 2. And that little audio clip is going to be such fun. I'm not telling you where that's from, but I will say this. It's from exactly the same thing as the sheep laughing clip. And I'm still not telling you what that thing is. You could just look it up, really. I looked it up and I found it.
Are you gay for rounder?
I had to use this flipping shot of Scratch here. Why does he have like gums and human teeth? What is that about? Why?
I am bisexual!
Oh yeah, so Engine being bisexual. I guess that's always kind of been my headcanon. I don't really know why. He just gives off the bi vibes. And with Mashed Bandicoot itself kind of obviously being somewhat my headcanon for these characters, and it's also somewhat of a fan fiction that I brought to life in a way. The only reason he says it here is because it's another reference to the ISGP highlights video that I did. I was originally just going to use the original clip and then just add like a bit of a robotic effect. But then I thought about it and I thought, maybe I could get Engine to actually say this. So, I'm glad I did that.
Stop fucking and hurry up.
Don't have a go, man!
That was the shot that I really wanted to show off. I showed it off in the community post. I showed it off in the trailer. This took so long. This is probably the longest I spent masking anything in the entirety of Mashed Bandicoot DLC. This is about 40 frames, I want to say. As you can tell, Engine is quite a complex shape. He's got the missile, he's got the hair, he's got these shoulder pad things, and he's got his gloves. It's a very difficult shape, and to cut that out 40 times, it took multiple days. I spread out the process across multiple days, but it was absolutely 100% worth it because this shot looks amazing.
Fuck you and everything you care about or loved or ever needed in your life. I hope you get nothing beneficial to you.
This is the only time that anyone ever actually interacts with Markiplier because he's supposed to be this outside entity who's either watching the events or playing the game or something like that. I don't really know. So to have this bit with Robotnik actually arguing with him was fun.
I don't enjoy all the lovely
many things in life.
That's
I hope
right,
you don't get that
baby.
promotion.
And I like that he says, I hope you don't get that promotion. As if it's kind of referring to when Robotnik said he would give himself a promotion. That was funny.
This isn't good, Crash. Robotnik is a lot smarter than Cortex ever could be.
Oh yeah, it took a long time for me to figure out how exactly the characters would be tied up, because I needed it so that Aku Aku could still talk, so I couldn't really have his mouth wrapped up, and so it's sort of like this weird thing where it's just like his feathers and his sort of beard, but he's just like very barely held in there. He could probably very easily get out, but whatever. Oh yeah, and I checked multiple times to make sure I was getting that number correctly. It was definitely left on 7 at the point where the alternate endings branch off. So yeah, this would have been number 8 in this version of reality.
Next question. Okay.
Most of Mashed Bandicoot DLC takes place primarily in the same location inside like the Doominator head. So I needed a few bits here and there that took place somewhere else. And so I suppose it made sense because Sonic and Tails were still here from the train scene in Mashed Bandicoot Part 2. So Robotnik would think, well, I need to make sure that Sonic doesn't interrupt any of this. Even though he's clearly not bothered about it at all. You know, they're just hanging out here. They're not doing anything. They probably don't even know what's going on.
What does the fuck say?
This was the first scene that I showed. Because I think it was the first scene that I actually finished.
Memes.
Oh, that's a nice frame to pause on, isn't there? So yeah, Embryo has a little cameo in every ending. And yeah, this is a little clip from Nitro Fueled. I tried to not use too much from like Crash Bandicoot games that came out after I made Mashed Bandicoot, because I wanted it to sort of feel like I don't know. I wanted it to sort of have that same kind of feeling as if this was made in 2006 in 2016, I mean. Along with the original Mashed Bandicoot. So I tried to limit the amount of stuff that I could get from like the Insane Trilogy or Nitro Fueled or even Crash Bandicoot 4. I did use little bits here and there, but, you know, most of it is with the stuff that was around before, you know, Crash came back.
Hey, what is that? Looks like a man without a weenie, kid.
That was a funny sentence mix. So I'll tell you one thing I don't like about this scene is this shot right here. It's facing the other way because, you know, Sonic is facing right here, and all the other shots with Sonic and Tails, they're facing left, and then all the shots with Mario Head, he's facing directly onwards. So it's a bit confusing. It's a bit disorientating, but whatever. There's a very minor criticism on what is otherwise unanimous praise on my part for everything I made, because I'm amazing and everything I make is amazing. So, you know, I gotta find something to criticize.
I can fly you.
I love that joke. So here's a fun fact. Should I even reveal this? I don't know. I don't know if anyone really cares about this. But I'm going to say it anyway. Whatever. I'll cut it out if I find it boring. The way I primarily make my music is through a PSP game. And that PSP game is called Beaterator. And so what I did is I made Mario Flying into a little sound font. And then I put that in Beaterator and then changed the notes. And I actually matched it up to a very specific song that is included in the files of Beaterator as like a sort of a demo track. So it's not random notes, actually. It's very specific notes from a very specific demo song of a very specific obscure PSP game.
Hello?
Crash, is that you?
I'm sorry. Crash, it's not here right now. I told you. Don't call me after 10 p.m.
I really like this shot. This shot with Engine holding the phone up to his ear. Does he even have an ear on that side? Actually, now if I think about it, I don't think he has an ear on that side. But I do love this shot. Look how cute Engine looks there. Like, seriously, I'm not even kidding. He looks really cute here. He's adorable. And I'm tired of pretending he's not. but I like this shot. So yeah, the idea of having Coco be the one to, well, not exactly save them, but sort of give them the idea of how to save themselves. I guess because Coco had like nothing to do with Mashed Bandicoot. She had no part in that. She appeared very briefly in a few scenes to kick some people, but that was about it.
Look!
Oh yeah, and I like this idea of Mr. Krabs' calculator becoming like an important plot device. Because it was unfortunate that because of where the alternate endings branch off from, it meant that Mr. Krabs couldn't do anything because he'd already been killed by that point. So he's literally just like a background object. So it was nice to have like some way of including his side of the story in it a little bit. so that it wasn't just completely Mr. Krabs' story finished, that's it. I mean, that was the point before, for Mashed Bandicoot Part 2, that was the whole point, is that that's where Mr. Krabs' story finished. So Mr. Krabs just gets killed off and then plays no further part in the story.
Go, my dwarfs.
Oh yeah, and the dwarfs as well. It was nice for this specific ending to just try and bring back a lot of different characters. And even if they like played no role whatsoever, other than just sort of being there in Mashed Bandicoot, they were given something to do here in this ending. You know, same with Guanum himself. He wasn't involved in anything other than just to take Mr. Krabs there. And yet he gets captured and, you know, inadvertently gets messed up in this whole story. And he plays a much bigger role here than he ever did in Mashed Bandicoot.
So, how's it going?
Pretty well, thanks. You?
Good.
I've said this before, but one of my favorite things to do with these like story crossover kind of YouTube poops that I do is purely just simple like character interactions. Just having these two or more characters who are from completely different franchises and having them just talk to each other and have like natural conversation. I find that so cool. I find that so amazing that you can do that with just editing. Just some simple visual audio editing, and you can make these two characters who would never ever meet in any official piece of media and just have them just talk. That's just so cool to me.
So anyway,
I really like the wire of the phone and how it moves with Grounder, and then the shadow as well. I'm really proud of it. Oh yeah, and I had a few different ideas as to how exactly they would get out. I think at one point I was going to have it so that it would be here where Guanum and Aku Aku would join forces. Like somehow, I guess, Aku Aku would sort of wriggle his way out. They'd combine their powers and then break themselves and crash out or something like that. But then I left that until a little bit later on. And I also think there was going to be this bit where when Grounder went really far away and stretched the phone out, Crash was just going to like let go of it. And then the impact would either knock out Grounder or break him or whatever. And then they'd just break out after that or something like that. But I think this is the best way to do. This is the way I settled on, to have him just be stupid and just go and investigate while Crash was still hanging on to the other end of the phone. And then just get slingshotted. Slingshotted? Slungshot. Slingshot?
I got it!
quickly now, Crash. Go.
It was so great coming up with the little events that would happen, what different characters would do. Editing it was a blast, pun intended. And yeah, it was really fun.
Need for revenge.
Oh yeah, and I like this bit because Grounder was destroyed, so Engine's trying to get revenge. Revengin'.
Building.
Oh yeah, I was considering having holding out for a hero playing in this scene, but yeah, that would have been very on the nose. Oh, there we go. That's one of the wallpapers. There's that one, and then there's the more inappropriate one in the other version of this ending. That obviously being a Gaber-chan reference, a reference to the King's Epic Adventure. And, you know, I do an I Teach Fade a bit later on. You know, I got the idea for that from Lucko de Stars, I think, did this little thing where he was, like, dubbing in the characters' voices. And he did one with, like, Robotnik and Cortex and had them, you know, talk about that they were brothers, referring to my videos, obviously. But then simultaneously referring to Tails being Robotnik's son. And so it was like a double reference with that Robotnik being, like, not only being Cortex's brother, but being Tails' adoptive father. And I just found that really cool. I just thought it was really cool to have it be like that he was both and referring to both of us at the same time. So I sort of incorporated that in here, and then thought, as a third one, we'll have him be the same Robotnik from the King's Epic Adventure. Oh yeah, and there's the high voltage power box thing in the background there that comes into play heavily in the original ending. It was good to keep a little shred of consistency when it comes to the layout of the inside of the Doominator head. So the idea of then just destroying the calculator just at the point where you think it's going to save them, that was kind of sort of taken from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I liked the idea of when he goes up to defeat the Flisservdiffer and then plugs the thing in, and then it doesn't work, and then it just gets shot straight out and breaks. And then you think, oh, that was the only thing that was going to shut this machine down, and now it's just destroyed. What on earth is actually going to be the resolution?
4,000 feet!
You know, Robotnik is quite aggressive in this, and he's actually, like, much more competent than he is in the show.
He's gonna get me!
Oh yeah, it took me ages to find out which episode of Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog that this was from, because I know Gaber-chan has used it a few times, and I knew it had a background that would be pretty easy to chroma key out. But, you know, I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of all 66 episodes of the show, so there was a lot of skimming through every single episode trying to find this one shot.
Get away from my son, you little beast!
So this idea, I'm so glad I thought of this, because originally I was just going to do it as like just a normal Twinsanity reference. He was just going to like go up to Robotnik and just kick him. And that was just going to be just a simple Twinsanity reference. And then I thought, wait a minute, what about if I refer back to what happened in Mashed Bandicoot and what Crash did instead? Oh, I'm so glad I thought of that. That felt so fitting. Similarly with what Crash does straight after, where he just presses a random button and then that's what like sets off the Doominator to take off. And I just thought that is so fitting for this version of Crash, this Mashed Bandicoot depiction of Crash, that the two things he does that actually save the day is pressing buttons and wanting to have non-consensual intercourse with the behind of a mad scientist. I loved that. That was so perfect.
Crash, what did I say?
I really like this shot right here. I use this as the thumbnail for Everything Wrong with Mashed Bandicoot DLC, because I just feel like this shot perfectly encapsulates what's happened in this specific ending, because you've got like the Guanum and Aku Aku combined. You've got Engine here with a bucket of chicken on his missile. Behind them, you've got the remains of Scratch. And then behind them, you've still got the smouldering ashes of minions. The music playing here is from The Simpsons Hit and Run. Basically, I just put it in because I thought it sounded kind of similar to the music that plays in the final cutscene of Mind of a Mutant. Come to think of it, they were probably both composed by Mark Burrell, so that would explain that. To be honest, I don't really like this shot. I feel like this looks a bit weird. I wanted to have that shot of it sort of zooming out from Robotnik and then to the whole Doominator head flying through the sky, but I'm not really too sure about it.
It's been a real pleasure serving with you boys.
Now we can be together.
And you can still see Von Clutch in the background there. He's just been left there and nobody's done anything to help him.
Bloody blast up my ass!
Oh yeah, and that's another one of Matt Berry's lines from the IT crowd. I love that I could do that because they're both voiced by Matt Berry. So I just had all these different clips of him just swearing and saying funny stuff, and I could just make George Volcano say it.
Well done, Crash. Cortex has once again been defeated.
This is probably like the longest I held on a single shot in the entire thing. But I do really like this shot. I loved the idea of Guanum and Aku Aku kind of just becoming one entity. It made it so much easier rather than trying to figure out something that I could do with Guanum after they escaped. The laws of how the masks work in the Crash Bandicoot universe are a bit vague. If the mask is on the face of a character, does that mean that they're controlling that character? Or, like, is this Guanum or is this Aku Aku? My assumption is that it's Aku Aku and he's just sort of taken over Guanum's body. But yeah, this was quite a complicated shot actually, because I had to cut out Guanum from the original animation, so I had to get rid of the carpet and Link. And then on top of that, I had to cut out his hands separately so that they could pass in front of Aku Aku. Then I had to recreate the carpet and sort of get that animation of it like waving. And then there's Crash there, and then there's the minions in front, and then the sky changes from like a blue sky to a sort of sunset orange. So this is like time passing, I suppose. And if you'll notice, the characters sort of become like warmer and darker as well, and get a bit of a shadow. And then their actual shadows get more pronounced and longer. There's a lot going on in this shot. It took a while.
The minions are fitting. Isn't it beautiful?
I guess that's worth the whoa, huh?
That was fantastic. See you next
time. So then we've got the secret credits here. This was really fun to do. It was difficult because I had to pretty much recreate all of this from scratch. It was fun to think of like what was going to be going on for each of these shots, because in the main the panty and stocking credits, the first one is them driving a car off a cliff or something like that. The second one, this big monster that's about to eat them. The third one is this massive saw blade that's going to cut them in half, and then the fourth one is them like in a desert with these vultures surrounding them. So sort of trying to think of what I could do with Robotnik and Cortex to sort of more or less match up to those. Yeah, it was time consuming, but it was really fun. And I really like these two little designs of Cortex and Robotnik here. Did I say Crash and Cortex a minute ago? I meant Cortex and Robotnik. I'm sorry if I said that wrong a minute ago. A lot of people consider this the good ending. Mario is the bad ending and then Robotnik is the neutral. But if you think about it, the Robotnik ending is actually the only one where no one dies. It's sort of, it's safe to assume Robotnik didn't die somehow from the fall, and unless you count like the Majora's Mask moon eventually crashing and killing, I don't know, the least amount of death, I suppose, isn't it? But then in the original ending, the moon just lands on George, and then that's the end of that. So maybe it was just people making mountains out of molehills, perhaps, or volcanoes, perhaps. Okay, so now we'll move on to the Mario Head ending. So yeah, the Mario Head ending was the last ending I worked on. I mean, for the other two, I sort of like did little parts of each of them here and there, but this one I left till the end.
My tonsil, he is a funny.
For quite a long time, I was debating whether I would even do this. I kept trying to think of another idea, because I sort of had it in my head, and I sort of talked about this a little bit in the last retrospective. I often get these like big cataclysmic ideas in YouTube hoops, and then I end up not doing those because I realize that it's too over the top, and I eventually end up settling for something simpler. I did it with Cozy Hot Cup of Sugar Honey Iced Tea. I did it with Philbert Gay Man Faces Evil. I did it with Ripto's Regicide heavily. Like, there was a lot of stuff that I was gonna do for Ripto's Regicide that was really, really big and really complex, and I eventually settled on something much simpler. So I had it in my head that I was going to end up doing that. I had this idea of that it would just create this huge black hole and the whole universe would be sucked into it. And I kept thinking, I'm going to change my mind on this at some point. I'm going to realize this is too big of an idea and I want to do something simpler. But then I eventually realized, you know what? This is Mashed Bandicoot DLC. When am I ever gonna actually get a chance to do something this big? It feels like the right time to do it if no other time does. And I was gonna say this in the last ending actually as well, because that ending, like, I called it the blockbuster ending, because it like has all these kind of big like blockbuster events. There's like these battles and stuff, characters flying, shooting at each other, and you know, that feels like the kind of idea that I would have very early on in a video, and then eventually decide to do something simpler. But this is Mashed Bandicoot DLC, so I wanted to go all out. I eventually realized, yes, I can do this black hole ending and make it work. And I'm so glad I did it. I'm really happy with how this ending looks. I'm really happy that it caught everyone off guard. Nobody was expecting this to happen. And it worked really well. It felt very fitting for Mario Head for this to be what happened. It kind of worked as a payoff, in a way, because Mario Head was kind of built up to be this mysterious, omnipotent kind of force that nobody really understood, but everyone was sort of a bit weary of. Nobody really knew what he was capable of, and then this is sort of like the payoff to that, I suppose. This is the power that Mario Head holds, and if he eats a ray gun blast, he turns into a black hole, and the universe is destroyed. I like this little bit here where Cortex actually tries to save Robotnik. I thought it was nice to just have this little bit to show that, you know, they do still care about each other. You know, they're still brothers. Neither one of them necessarily wants the other one to die, you know. There's so much going on in this shot. There's so many characters, so many things going on in the background. I'm really surprised that the editor didn't have a heart attack. And by the editor, I'm of course talking about myself. And there's the Papu minion just goes in last there. That was a difficult shot, actually, to do that zoom out with all these like different layers of land. Robotnik's lair, which I guess is on Earth in Mashed Bandicoot for some reason. You got the Majora Moon there, you got George Volcano here, and then you got Sonic and Tails all the way over here. It was a complicated shot.
Hey look, there's Embryo.
Yeah, and there's Embryo's third cameo. Oh yeah, and then I like this bit that Crunch finally breaks out of the ice, and then presumably immediately gets sucked into a black hole. So this is really funny. So you'll notice that the music is very loud and distorted here. That's because when I was editing this, I put the music track in, and then because I had all these extra sound effects, you know, the black hole itself was making this really loud suction noise, I had all these characters screaming, glass breaking, all these other like sound layers going on top of it, it actually ended up drowning out the music in the editor. So I had to turn up the volume so loud so that you could still hear the music. And that made me laugh so much, because I just thought that fits Mario Head so perfectly, that there's just all of this chaos going on and it's so loud, and then you just have this, what is probably one of the most iconic Mario songs in history, deliberately turned up just so you can hear it over the top of all this chaos. It was great. It made me laugh so much. I just thought, yeah, and it was pretty much at that point where I realized, yeah, this ending is definitely worth doing. I'm so glad that I decided to do this. There he is, Markiplier.
Okay, that's weird. We somehow blew up a black hole. That's anticlimactic.
Yeah, and I just thought that's the perfect place to end it. Just have him say that's anticlimactic, and then that's it. That's where the ending finishes. So yeah, that's all of it. That's Mashed Bandicoot DLC. What do I really have to say on that that I haven't already said over and over again? It was great. It was great doing that. Never thought that I'd ever actually do that when I finished Mashed Bandicoot. I remember saying all the way back then, Mashed Bandicoot took a lot out of me, and I sort of made the decision that I would never really do something quite that big again. Never like do an all-out story YouTube poop. You know, I've incorporated like little story elements here and there, like Ripto's Races Reignited, for example. But yeah, it was a really great experience to just get to do that again, to just have another go around with Mashed Bandicoot and just do some more stuff with it. It was honestly really fun. It was really fun trying to come up with different ideas for the different endings, and then also having like this elaborate thing where there was like different variations, and you could do them in different orders and get different outcomes, get the secret credits, and then find the hidden code and stuff like that. You know, I didn't hype it up quite as much as I did the original Mashed Bandicoot. Like I did like 4 teasers and then a trailer for the original, and I like constantly talking about it. But I did hype it up a little bit. Like I made a trailer for this one. I'm still really happy with that trailer. Like I go back and watch that sometimes, and I think, yeah, that is a good trailer. I really love making trailers for things sometimes, and the Mashed Bandicoot DLC trailer is one of my favorite trailers I've done. The one thing that I kind of regret is the whole way I handled like it being the 50k subscriber special, and that I'd kind of finished it before we got to 50,000 subscribers. You know, that was very presumptuous of me to think we'd be there by then, and then sort of try and say, can you guys subscribe so that we can just get there? It didn't feel right to sort of pressure you guys into subscribing just so I would release a video. But anyway, it was still a really fun experience, and the whole premiere was great. That was such a fun experience. You know, seeing everyone's like first-hand reactions to it and stuff like that. It was great. It was really great. It was just really fun to go back to Mashed Bandicoot. With it being like the most iconic video on the channel pretty much, it's still being my favorite video I've ever made, and I still think that I won't ever really top it. And it was just great to sort of go back to that. I don't want to say never, but I think that's it then for Mashed Bandicoot. I don't think I'll ever do anything quite like that ever again. I certainly don't think I'll ever do a proper sequel to Mashed Bandicoot. It's done now. It's been and done. I didn't think I'd ever do the alternate endings, and then I did. So who can say for certain, but I feel like I've kind of closed the book on Mashed Bandicoot now. And once this video comes out, I can finally finish off the playlist. So there will be a proper like Mashed Bandicoot playlist where you'll get everything. Same with the Ripto's Racists trilogy, I suppose, even though it's sort of 2 and a remake. But, you know, both of those are done now. You know, the Mashed Bandicoot collection and the Ripto's Racists trilogy, they're both done. It's kind of weird to think about that. 2 video series that have been so important on this channel, and 2 video series that encompass 2 of my favorite video game franchises ever. You know, I'll still make Crash Bandicoot poops. I might still make Spyro poops. I don't know. Maybe when Spyro 4 comes out, I might make a little YouTube poop of that. But, you know, those specific series are done. It's kind of sad in a way, actually. I'm so grateful for putting the time in to make those. I'm so grateful for how many people loved them and still love them, and, you know, send me messages and fan art and stuff about them, and it's great. It was a great experience. It really was. But now we just look to the future, don't we? So I guess I just want to say thank you to all of you guys. Thank you for 50,000 subscribers, making that video what it was, for making this entire channel what it is, basically. It's insane when you really stop and think about it. I'm getting very sentimental now, and I realize that. Probably should move on to the next video in a second, but yeah, I do just really want to say thank you for all the love and the support and the wonderful comments and all of that. It makes it all worth it. It really does. So thank you guys so much. I'll end it there. Thank you for watching. Hello, it's me. I'm still here. So, like last time, if you got any further questions about the videos that I discussed in this video, leave them in the comments. I'm pretty likely to respond. And also, this full retrospective is probably going to end up being 4 parts rather than 3. So yeah, apologies for that. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer for the full thing. But to reward you for your kind patience, the next part, part 3, which will be out in I think end of May, that will not only include It's About Time collab, Flockwood's Oversized Meatballs, but also all 5 episodes of The Fowl House. And I know that doesn't quite make sense because 2 of them were made this year. In fact, one of them, I literally just finished. I know it doesn't really make sense, but it just seems to fit a bit better if I just do all 5 rather than leaving 2 of them until the end. Who cares? I don't think anyone's really going to complain about that. So yeah, that's just about it. So you can click here to watch part 3 if it is ready yet. If it is not, I think what will be here instead is probably a link to the Mashed Bandicoot Complete Collection playlist, which is now complete. I made a little intro video for it. So yeah, thanks for watching and have a nice day. What kind of flippin' outro was that?